Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Connor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, if anybody has any public comments, they can step towards the podium. Anybody on Zoom? Anybody want to speak? Okay, there's no public speakers for public comments, so we are going to move to our first item on the agenda, which is a sad one, but a wonderful thing for this village. For 26 years, Sue Loppnow served on the Police and Fire Commission as a commissioner. The village board will be presenting a proclamation for Sue Loppnow. I think it's appropriate, with all of that time on the Police and Fire Commission, that it be read by our police chief, Torrin Misko.
Before I get started, I did want to just recognize some of our other PFC commissioners that attended this meeting. We have Chris Rebholz, Trevor DeBoer, and Rob Little. And Mark Reisinger sent his regrets. He had to travel for business, but wished he could have been here today for the proclamation. So for our proclamation, in recognition of over 26 years of service to the Village of Hartland by Susan Loppnow. Whereas Police and Fire Commission President Susan Loppnow has loyally served the Village of Hartland residents for over 26 years as a Police and Fire Commissioner, having been first appointed in October of 1996. And whereas Susan Loppnow demonstrated dedication and provided guiding hand to the appointment of personnel on the Hartland Police and Fire Department, and whereas Susan Loppnow participated in the recruitment process for all of the current police officers serving at the Hartland Police Department and all but one of the current firefighters serving in the Hartland Fire Department, which directly contributed to the level of excellence in police and fire services provided to the Village of Hartland. And whereas the Village of Hartland Board of Trustees believes that Susan Loppnow has been an asset to the community through her dedicated service and is thanked for her dedication and over 26 years of service to the Village of Hartland. Now, therefore, the Village Board for the Village of Hartland hereby proclaims thanks and appreciation to Police and Fire President Susan Loppnow for her over 26 years of service to the Village of Hartland, and encourages the community to join in extending thanks to this public servant's service. Dated this 22nd day of May 2023, signed by Village President Jeffrey Fannerstill. And I'd like to present this to the family. Yeah, absolutely.
You want to take a picture now, Deb?
Make it. Still got you on video.
Okay.
Picture or video?
Picture. It's okay.
I think I got it.
Okay, if you think. She's got so much stuff on there.
Did we get the picture? Sorry.
I think so. Then it went away. Here we go.
There it is, all right.
Okay, we're gonna do one more.
Take two.
Okay.
Take two. Sorry. Ready?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sue will be extremely missed and leaves a huge hole in the village, but hopefully will live on in everyone's heart forever. The next item that we have on the agenda, consideration of village board minutes of the May 8th, 2023 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve village board minutes of May 8, 2023. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have items related to vouchers. We have consideration of contractor's payment number 1 to DF Tomasini for utility repairs.
DF Tomasini, our utility contractor for the 2023 utility season, is seeking payment number 1 for the sum of $132,063.95. This is for storm sanitary and water utility and water hydrant projects. Staff is recommending the payment of $132,063.95 to DF Tomasini Incorporated for the work completed.
Make a motion that we approve the payment of $132,063.95 for payment number 1 to DF Tomasini.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to make that payment to DF Tomasini. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have consideration of contractor's final payment for American Pavement Solutions, Inc. for 2023 crack sealing program.
So American Pavement Solutions Incorporated is seeking the closeout of this 23 crack sealing project. Since the project came in so far under budget, we added the Mary Hill subdivision. The boulevard was showing some cracking, and there's some cracking around the manhills. So we put a addition on that contract for $3,000. So staff is recommending a payment of $32,502.00 to American Pavement Solutions Incorporated.
I'll make a motion to approve the final payment to American Pavement Solutions Incorporated for 2023 crack sealing program.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve that payment for American Pavement Solutions. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Lastly, related to vouchers, we have a consideration of vouchers for payment in the amount of $741,572.02.
This total does include the two items just approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers in the amount of $741,572.02.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the vouchers. Any discussion?
I have a couple questions. What is Operation Rush? I should know what that is.
That's actually a patrol interdiction training program. So it's put on it, usually once or twice a year in our area, and we send some officers to attend that training.
Is that something we do annually with? certain-
Not every year, but when we have newer officers, we try to have everyone go through some type of patrol interdiction training. That's one of the trainings that we attend for that
Okay.
particular
Okay.
topic.
And then I have one last question for Public Works. Could you explain to me, what is Cold Path? Wolf Paving, and it says Cold Path. There's not a lot of money.
That's Cold Patch. It's the PATCH. So
Mine
that's.
says Path.
Yeah, it's patch.
Oh, well,
It's-
never
It's what
mind,
we
I know
use
what
for,
that is.
yeah, it's used
Okay.
for potholes.
Sorry. I thought we had a path that, that's all I had, thank you.
Anything else? Call the question. All in favor of paying the vouchers? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have actions related to licenses and permits. We have bartenders licenses for Nolan Masterson, Joy Massey, Anna Waltz, Catherine DeClore, and Molly Johnson.
Make a motion that we approve the operator's bartender's licenses as read.
I'll second.
Question.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Did you skip Justin, or was he eliminated on the schedule?
Second from Bob.
I have Justin. Justin Bushy?
He was removed?
He was
There was
removed?
there
Okay.
was an updated packet that came
Okay.
out, sorry, yeah.
My bad.
I'm guessing, I guess we can clarify, is he removed? Okay.
Again, that will be in front of you for the next board meeting, and there will be a memo in
Oh, okay.
regards to that particular individual.
Anybody else for discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have temporary operators licenses for St. Charles Fall Fest. This is Keith Vanderlarshot.
Make a motion that we approve the temporary operator's license for Keith Vandelarshot.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the temporary operator's license for St. Charles Fall Fest. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have temporary operator's license for Hometown Celebration. This is Sarah Rennekamp and David Felkner.
I'll make a motion to approve temporary operator license for hometown celebration for Sarah and Dave.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those temporary operators license for hometown celebration. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have a temporary Class B retailer's license for St. Charles Catholic Parish, 313 Circle Drive for Fall Fest, September 8th through September 10th, 2023.
Make a motion that we approve the Class B retailer's license for St. Charles Catholic Parish for Fall Fest.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Class B, the temporary Class B and the Class B retailer's license for St. Charles Fall Fest. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have, restricted species permit applications. First one is Ed Adams at 924 South Imperial Drive for 6 chickens. If they call you up. Does anybody need to ask questions?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
Your property abuts up to the middle school's property, is that correct? So
Okay, go to the
the
podium.
kids won't be in the kids won't like bug them at all? Or-
The area is separated by a whole tree line.
Tree line?
I don't know how far it goes, but yeah, you can hear the kids, but we never see them.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the kids wouldn't bug your
Sure.
stuff.
And they're all stowed away anyhow inside
Okay.
the pen.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
I'd make a motion that we approve the Adams to have 6 chickens.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 6 chickens at the Adams residence or property. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. The next one we have is Brady Clemenson and Hunter Addy for 4 chickens. Address? Is it on the thing? 912 Manchester Court, Hartland, Wisconsin. Anybody need to speak to them? Yeah, are they present? Yep, they're here.
Is this new for you? Is this the first time you've had chickens?
For me, yes, but for my
Partner, no.
Pets and eggs, okay. I just was curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 4 chickens for Brady Clemenson and Hunter Addy.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the 4 chickens at 912 Manchester Court for Brady Clemenson and Hunter Addy, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Lastly, we have Eric Rommel at 788 East Imperial Drive for 3 dogs. Is that present? Anybody have questions for this gentleman?
Fine, Mike.
Come up to the podium, please.
What he's about to tell you is it's actually for 4 dogs. They have 3 dogs, which was already approved in 2018.
That's correct.
And-
So it's for
and the-
4.
And the 4th dog is a service dog?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Has the permit been changed?
So how this came to light back in February of this year, we responded to the residents for some barking dogs, and it came to light that there was 4 dogs instead of the 3 that were prior approved. I think Mr. Rommel put together a letter in his application as to how that came about, so he can explain that further if the board has questions on that, on the reasoning there. And we asked him to take corrective action with, 1, getting approval for the 4 dogs, and then 2, licensing the 4 dogs. He can't license 4 dogs till the board approves 4 dogs though, so one kind of comes with the other. So we kind of went back and forth with that for the last little bit, and then now he's here in front of you today to do that. Back in 2018, Administrator Cox and at the time Chief Fagan wrote, I looked through the minutes, and basically how they described it is with this type of process, it's the police department would address any behavior issues with animals and the owner, and then the restricted species permit is related to the facility, space, etc. being appropriate for the number of animals. We have been to Mr. Rommel's house on occasion throughout the last year or so. They do tend to take some corrective action after a couple visits, and then we don't come back for a while, and then we maybe find ourselves back after a month, several months, or a year later, and then again, kind of do that process. But they are responsive to the corrective action after we have some visits, and just, I don't know, it's kind of one of those weird situations where we just got to kind of pay some periodic visits, and it's always in regards to barking dogs, because, and I'm sure Mr. Rommel can explain this better than I can, the dogs have some access in and out of the residence, but there's an electric fence, so they'll come out and bark from time to time, and we do get complaints from the neighbors from time to time. So within 2022 and 2023, we did respond out there 7 different times. 4 of those where we actually issued a citation for the barking dog. February 9th of 2022, November 22nd of 2022, shortly thereafter that, November 26th of 2022, and then back actually 1 year to the day of the first one, February 9th, 2023. So as you can see, they do take some corrective action, they make some adjustments, but then we tend to be out there, you know, once a year or once every 6 months or so, depending on the period of time. This is 3 dogs that were previously approved. I think one of those was that service animal that was previously approved. That's Snoopy, right, Mr. Rommel?
That's correct, yeah.
And then this was a new Rottweiler mix that was due to a family issue that he explains in his letter, that he was under the impression, I believe, is that because he already had the restricted species permit, he thought he was good to go, and that he didn't have to reapply for it, so to go from 3 to 4. So that's why he's here in front of you today, to make that change from the 3 to the 4. With one of those dogs being a service dog, our recommendation is to approve. However, the service dog does need to be licensed.
Curiosity, which one's the troublemaker, or do they all kind of have their own?
It is 100% the black lab.
Is there someone home, the dogs you said can go in and out if they want, is there someone there when they're outside? When they go out? Or?
Most of the time, yes. However, for years, they have come and gone as they want. I've just left the door open so they can go in and out, depending on their work schedule. We had new people move in, hence the complaints. Since then, when we leave, we put the dog door back in.
You what?
We put the door back in so the dogs can't leave the house.
While you're gone, they're in the house?
That's correct, yep.
Okay. And then you're not intending to, when 1 or 2 of these do pass, you're going to stay then at the limit of 2?
At 3, but yes.
3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the 4th dog that we're going for now.
Right.
We had 3. Long story short, we had a family member pass. We were the only ones that were willing to take them, so we took her. And yeah, when the oldest one passes or one of the younger one passes, then we will gladly go back to 3 dogs.
I thought that when we approved 3 or more dogs, it was until they pass away and then they weren't replaced and go over 2 again? Is that not, that's standard what we do? Is that?
When we approve, it's typically for that specific dog.
Right, but once.
So even if all 3 of them passed away, they would have to come, if all of a sudden they're gonna get 3 more, they would have to come again for a restricted species permit, technically. I'm not saying that our police force is like, that's a new dog, but realistically, that's how it usually, is that
usually-
correct? Is my interpretation correct?
As you can imagine, we're not going door to door to count
Right.
dogs.
And the reason for that is because they can have different behaviors. So you
Yeah.
could get rid of 3 of them, but all of a sudden have 3 that are not good animals and have serious problems in the past and that kind of
What
thing.
we're
So
trying to tell people is the rule is 2 dogs.
the rule is 2 dogs.
So
Without
sometimes,
getting a restricted species permit.
right, so within the standards and the ordinance of this village, you would need to only have the 2 dogs. But sometimes people don't know that, and all of a sudden they find out they've got 3 or 4 dogs, and they'll come and say, I cannot get rid of Snoopy or whoever, you know, it's part of the family, which I understand.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
how
I
the third dog
foster
came
dogs.
about.
But we've usually said in the past, once they pass away, you need to stick to 2. But, okay, I understand.
And the ordinance does say they're allowed up to 5 animals, just no more than 2 of the same species, is how it's
Dog,
worded.
cat, whatever.
Correct, yep. And as I was stating, how these typically come about is exactly what happened in Mr. Rommel's case. We're there for a barking dog, we see 4 dogs, and we put 2 and 2 together, and we ask them to then comply with the ordinance. So unless it's observed, we're typically not addressing the situation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think in light of the fact that they are not looking to replace one of the 4 dogs when probably their oldest pet is going to pass, that I would say that I'd like to make a motion to approve this restricted license and move forward.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the restricted species permit for the Rommels. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
The next item that we have on the agenda is consideration of an ordinance number 04242023, an ordinance creating substitute amendment of the Village of Hartland Code of Ordinances regulating residency restrictions for sex offenders. That has gone through the readings. This has been a long time coming. This has been through everybody's email quite a few times, but obviously if anybody has anything that they want to ask Chief or our attorney, or anyone, they are free to do so. But this would put an ordinance in place restricting areas that registered sex offenders can move in. Chief, can you verify the number that we're at right now, listed on the list in Hartland, do you know? Are we still at 21?
That sounds right, but I wouldn't want to be quoted saying that on the record, but I do have the list upstairs, so
Okay,
that sounds
all
about
good.
right.
I guess I just want the village to know we're going in the right direction. We've nearly cut it in half in 5 years.
Yeah, I think what has been done in the village and what we did with the moratorium was fantastic, and it's great to see that an ordinance is now going to be on the books, and there are safe zones surrounding all the places where all our children in the village congregate. So I would like to make the motion that we approve the ordinance number 04242023, an ordinance creating substitute amendments of the Village of Hartland's Code of Ordinances regulating residency restrictions for sex offenders.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 424-2023, an ordinance creating substitute amendment of the Village of Hartland Code of Ordinances regulating residency restrictions for sex offenders. This vote would end our enforcement of a moratorium on registered sex offenders moving into the village, but this also does, we've gone in the direction that we want to go, so. And it will continue to go down, in my opinion, but I can't prove that until we get 2 years down the road. Go ahead.
One piece of correspondence that wasn't, I got it late Friday, so we weren't able to add it to the packet. It doesn't have any bearing on the passing of the ordinance, but it was just one thing that we typically do to ensure that we're in compliance, and it's actually state statute through the Lake Country Municipal Court, is that we have to have our bond schedule always approved by the court and the judge. That can always be done after the fact. The problem there is if they have an issue, then we got to go back and fix that. We mirrored some other municipalities that already use the Lake Country Court, so I was very confident it was going to pass muster since it already had in other communities. And we did receive that letter from the judge saying that he approves that bond schedule for the first, second, third offenses and more in its entirety. So that was one piece of correspondence we were waiting for.
Chief, where will residents, if they wanted to see the map, go to see the map?
That's something that we'll have obviously available at the Village Hall and the Police Department, and then I'm assuming upon approval of the ordinance, we'll get it available on our website.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item we have is consideration of a first reading of bill for an ordinance number 522-2023-01, an ordinance to amend Chapter 70-3 of the Village of Hartland Municipal Code pertaining to park hours with penalty.
So this all came to light, this 70-3, and then we'll get into 70-4 and 70-5. These are the codes, the ordinance for the parks. We noticed that it was outdated. These last were updated in 1991 and 2005. What we added here is individuals called us, and now that we have the lit paths, they want to know if they can access them after hours. So that we took this to the park board, and we also hit it at staff level, police and fire. So what we added in here is Nixon Park hours shall be established and posted from time to time, which may be different from the hours applicable for other village parks. So all the parks are sun up to sundown, so the exception will be the lit path. And then under number 70-3, subtitle 5, it says violations and penalties. What the police chief wanted is that we wanted, there has to be a fine related to it if you do violate that. So we put the first offense penalty and the second offense penalty in there, our village attorney did. And that's the only changes that we put into 70-3.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can.
If you're on the Ice Age Trail or on one of the paths that we consider part of our connectivity, and you're going through a park that's does not have a lighted path, but it's on the map, can someone walk on that after dusk?
I would have to say yes, in my opinion, because none of the Ice Age trails ever restrict a time. And I don't know, I wouldn't answer to the police department, but I don't know if they would even have a problem with that.
The Ice Age Trail, in its majority, really doesn't fall under any of our park system. So if they're actually on Ice Age Trail proper, doing that to not be village-owned land, then we don't enforce it as.
Oh, so if they're on the trail, that's not village-owned land, so it's, okay.
So, yeah, we don't enforce the Ice Age Trail similar to we do our village parks. So where those other trails, though, that could come into play are other parks, like Pembroke Park, that don't have the lighted.
I guess just something for thought, because we listed as part of the connectivity, so if you're heading out, maybe in the winter it'd make more of a difference, but, I mean, obviously it's kind of, you know where I'm going with this, but also if someone's deciding not to drive and they're walking from downtown Hartland to get home, it's a much shorter route on the path. But just throwing it out there, something for us to think about as we go through these readings.
Yeah, and as you can imagine, the police officers do have discretion on all of our ordinances, and if someone's walking through with some reasonable explanation, then that's one thing. If they're there and we've had a lot of damage in the parks, that's another thing.
And it's pretty, you're on a path or you're not. If there's grass under your feet, you're in the park. Anybody else have anything they want to add on this? First reading is complete. Now we have consideration of a first reading of bill for an ordinance 0522-2023-02, an ordinance to amend Chapter 70-4 of the Village of Hartland Municipal Code pertaining to posting of notices.
So the 70-4, all it was is the verbiage was wrong, and this one went back to 1991 as well. We don't have a superintendent anymore. It's now Director of Public Works, and we added, the Village Park Board added his or her designee shall bond. receipt notice the park board erect such posts. And then in the last sentence, it also, we removed and added director and his or her designee. So them are minor verbiage changes.
Okay. Anybody have anything on that one? Then we have, that's for, first reading is complete. Then we have consideration of a first reading of a bill for an ordinance number 522-2023-03, an ordinance to amend chapter 70-5 of the Village of Hartland Municipal Code pertaining to allowing the sale of fermented malt beverages within specific land areas.
So under 70-5, we talked with staff and the park board. Subtitle number 2, it says the park board may allow, we added, fermented malt beverages to the process, possessed or consumed within specific parklands areas of a permit allowed under Heartland Ordinance 6-66, which refers to how you go about and get a permit. So that would have to go, you'd have to come to the village hall, fill out a permit, and then the police department would do a background check on you. So that's what that's in reference to. And then number 3, it says the park board may allow fermented beverages to be sold, possessed, and consumed only in specific parkland areas, which permit has been duly granted by the village board under all applicable provisions of Heartland Ordinance Chapter 6, Alcohol Beverages, Article 2. This is in reference to the beer garden. There was never anything stated in there for the beer garden, so we added that with the attorney's review for the beer garden.
Lots of cleanup.
Little bit of cleanup, yes.
Perfect, that's good.
Dave, how does this, I understand this is for the sale of alcohol, but what about people just bringing in picnic basket and a bottle of wine
So when you
that aren't part of,
rent a shelter, we ask if there's going to be alcohol, and you have to fill out a permit for that.
we're not talking, we're just saying they want to go have a picnic, they're going to throw a blanket down and sit in the grass, and they're going to have a bottle of wine, and is that allowed?
That would,
Currently, no.
I didn't think it was. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? We'll consider that first reading complete. Now we have items referred from the May 15th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting. We have consideration of a construction of a gazebo shelter for playground area 1280 Bristol Cone Drive that sailed through plan and is now in front of the village board. Does anybody have any questions for them?
We went through this on the planning commission, and
Yeah.
it's pretty simple.
Yep.
Just, it's a replacement, making it bigger, nicer.
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the construction of a gazebo shelter for playground at 1280 Bristol Cone Drive.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the gazebo at 1280 Bristol Cone Drive, gazebo shelter for the playground area, 1280 Bristol Cone Drive. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you for the picture. That was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have other items for consideration. Discussion and consideration of an application for a special events permit for Tabby's anniversary celebration on July 29th, 2023 at 111 East Capitol Drive. This is the 5th year they're doing this. Do you want them to come up? Anybody have questions for them?
I have one question.
Do you mind?
She just has to point, it's not a big one. This was kind of hard to look at and to see, and it looks like the band is gonna be right in the middle of the parking lot,
No, they're off to the side, to the left side. It's where they've been the last 4 years.
but they're facing
Our
your
building.
business, right? They're not facing, I just wanna make sure, because somebody asked me, make sure the band's not playing out to our house.
No,
Facing out.
they face our business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my only question.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Exactly, same thing as last 4.
I just wanted to confirm it.
Yep, no
Thank you.
problem.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application for a special events permit for Tabby's anniversary celebration, July 29th, 2023 at 111 East Capitol Drive.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the anniversary party or celebration at Tabby's on July 29th, 2023.
And I just want to add, this year, we're adding a fundraiser to it. So we're going to donate to a charity. We just haven't picked it and announced it yet, but it will be a charity that we're gonna donate for that night, so,
Awesome.
Awesome.
yep,
Thanks, Tabby.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Did we already take the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
I like the pause.
I can't be on autopilot all the time.
Aye.
See you guys.
Now we have discussion and consideration of an application for a special events permit for St. Charles Fall Fest, September 8th through 10th, 2023.
So, just so everyone is aware, Keith Vandelarshat was here earlier, he heard all the approval, and left. It's a little goofy how our code is written, so we've approved all the restricted licenses and just got to approve the event. So, I didn't realize he had left, so if you have questions, there's no change from last year. Minor.
Is this on? Oh, okay. The time on Friday, they're starting at noon instead of, it was 4 or 5 o'clock previously. It's the main change from last year to this year.
I'll make a motion to approve St. Charles Fest on September 8th through the 10th.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve St. Charles Fest on September 8th through 10th, starting at noon on Friday. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item that we have is a presentation of the Business Improvement District Marketing Study. Yeah, tell them about how to do the slides.
Good evening, everybody. Steve from the Village of Hartland Business Improvement District. I hate to point out anybody on the staff, but Ryan has done a great job of supporting us in this effort. Not that you guys are any less, but he's just a little bit ahead of you. So, Mike from Place Dynamics did a study of Hartland and the surrounding area. I would start to explain it to you, but I do a poor job. I'm gonna let Mike do his job, but I wanna make sure I say this more than once. Thanks for your support. I appreciate it very, very much. So with that, Mike from Place Dynamics.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think what I'll do here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of these. If I can figure out how to make this move. Scroll. Oh, okay. There we go.
So on there, if you do kind of a scroll wheel down, it'll go through. Otherwise, you can use it as a mouse if you go to the left here.
Okay.
That'll pop up on the side for you too. Either way.
Okay. So I'll give you a quick summary and as a way to start here, and I won't spend a lot of time on each slide, but generally what we found is Hartland is in a very good position. You're doing an excellent job of capturing the market that's available to you. It's a great market, and it still has plenty of opportunity in it. So there is an opportunity for the village to go ahead and attract other businesses, to encourage redevelopment in the downtown, and use some of the undeveloped or potential redevelopment sites elsewhere. We are looking at really two kinds of retail in Hartland, and not to get into a whole lot of detail, but there's different tiers of retail. There's convenience retail, there's neighborhood retail, which is the kind of thing you think of a pharmacy, hardware store, grocery store. Community retail, when you start to get into your big boxes like Walmart and Target and others. Regional retail, when you might be looking at larger concentrations of big boxes, or in the past, a mall. And then there's specialty or destination retail. And what you have in Hartland is neighborhood centers, and you also have the downtown, which is a destination. We wanted to look at a lot of different things, how you're performing relative to your competition, so we did some benchmarking. What's the composition of the trade area? What kind of challenges or opportunities do you have? And what kinds of actions could be taken, not only by the village or by the bid, but giving information that individual businesses can use. And one of the techniques we use to do that is mobile device tracking. So we were able to go in and look at several years' worth of data to see how things are evolving, what kind of patterns emerge, how different areas compete, and then looking at the demographics. And just a little bit of an overview here. We looked at a few specific areas. We looked at the neighborhood centers in Hartland or adjacent to Hartland, and we looked at a total of 6 destination districts. We looked at the 3 big ones, which are Wauwatosa, Waukesha, and Oconomowoc, and then closer to home, Pewaukee, Hartland, and Delafield. I'll get this eventually. Okay, so I talked about benchmarking, and we could look at the chain retail that's in the village and ask how it compares against other stores in that chain or against the that type of store overall. And what you see is pretty good. You know, in the category rank overall, grocery stores and some of the others, you're looking more or less around the middle of the pack, but you've got to consider that nationwide, you're also looking at areas where grocery stores have a much denser population and so higher traffic. These numbers are pretty good for a suburban community like Hartland. Within the chain, of course, some of the performance numbers are very good with Piggly Wiggly and Sendix and True Value. Culver's is a very interesting case we'll talk a little bit more about, but the Culver's store on 83 is in the top 8% of fast food restaurants in the country. So very good numbers. And we looked at different kinds of uses, shopping centers, big box stores, et cetera, to see where Hartland businesses might show up on that list. And this is within a 15-minute drive of the downtown. And that's what we consider more or less the base of your market here. And some of those businesses come up, but also note some of the ones that come up in other communities, things like Ritz Cafe in Oconomowoc or Water Street Brewery. Those are places that your market is frequently going. And this is just a depiction of that 15-minute drive. What you see in the purple color is where you're drawing customers from. That's based on foot traffic coming off of the mobile device tracking. And then the lighter shades of red there are the 15-minute, 20-minute drive times. So if you look at compare the two, your trade area is roughly the same as that 15-minute drive time. And then we can look at the comparison between the different stores, between the different grocery stores here. This is a little bit useful, I think, when you look at adding in the Century and see how that has a very distinct market as opposed to much more of an overlap between Sendix, Piggly Wiggly, and Pick and Save. And this is the trade area for downtown, shown in the blue blobs. Very typical of the downtowns in the area. You have, of course, that cluster that is close by, but you are pulling from these pockets of population in other parts as far east as Milwaukee's north side and as far west as Watertown. Up even to West Bend, less to the south. This compares the 6 downtowns that I mentioned, and you can see there's a little bit of variation in the close-in distance, but overall, they're very similar in terms of how much of their market they're pulling from various distances. And by the time you do get to 10 miles or so, you're really hitting about 2/3 of the total market. The overlap here between Hartland and the different communities. So your market and Delafield, you're pulling from very much the same places. Pewaukee, you see they are able to pull in from the west side of Milwaukee and the near-in suburbs. That is primarily because of the beach. And when we looked at Pewaukee very specifically, seasonal patterns, they have a very big uptick in the summer months when the beach is open, and that's who they're pulling at that point. A lot of overlap again with Oconomowoc, and not necessarily as much with Waukesha. Waukesha is pulling much more heavily to the east and south of where Hartland's market is, although there is still some overlap. And then I did map the three different, what I've called the big districts, the ones that have a much larger mass of specialty businesses, restaurants, retail, and things like that. And each of them has somewhat of a distinct market. There is more overlap between Waukesha and Oconomowoc, whereas Wauwatosa does not pull very well into the western suburbs. All this is kind of setting the whole big picture to understand how people are shopping and dining and using other kinds of activities that are in a downtown within the entire region here. And your market overall, I think I would just zero in on a couple things here. First of all, you have about 63,000 people living within a 15-minute radius, and you're capturing about 58,000 of them. That's a pretty good number. If you think about the larger metro region, there are 258,000 people in there, so you're reaching roughly 20% of the entire metro area. And then the other thing I would bring attention to is the median income figures, and that is a number that a lot of businesses would look at very favorably. When you're talking about an income, median income over $100,000 in your market, that will support a lot of uses that you're not going to find in other places. This, I'm glad it's showing up here. We had trouble last time. But in market analysis, there's segmentation. What a handful of companies do is they take a lot of demographic variables and income and economics and survey research and create these clusters of people that have similar traits and similar spending, purchasing habits. And what we're able to do using this set here is look at, on the one hand, within your market, how big is that particular segment relative to the U.S. population, and then within the group that you're capturing, how big is that segment relative to its size in your market. So anything on top of the horizontal bar is going to be something that you're reaching better than expected. And then on the right side, so that upper right quadrant, is your core customers. You have more of those people in the market, and you're capturing more than we would expect. And the other side of that, on the upper left quadrant, is these are segments that are not as well represented in the market as they are nationally, but you're doing a very good job capturing them. And so looking at this, if I were to summarize it just by very much generalizing the traits of these groups, what you're seeing here is a mix of ages. It does include some older people as well as younger households. But by and large, they are better educated and higher income, or I would say with the potential for higher income. So a particular segment of the population that's being reached by all the downtowns, and actually Waukesha and Wauwatosa in particular are doing a very good job of it. Young people who are at the beginning stage of their career. They have an education, they are maybe a little bit lower income, but that's only because they've just started their careers. They're on the path to being the people who are in your upper right quadrant in the future. So who is not coming here tends to be lower income and elderly. So think about people on more of a fixed income. And we can also look then at what their potential is for various kinds of activities, and where something like this might come in handy is if you're thinking about trying to do some kind of affinity program. You're an Ice Age Trail community, and people who are in your market have a market potential index of 116 for backpacking. That's 100 is national average. So they're more into outdoor activities. They're more out into hiking and other kinds of things, golf even. So that kind of affinity marketing, or even if you're thinking about having an event at your restaurant, maybe you want to do something around inviting in a celebrity chef, or it could be a lot of different things, but food, wine pairings, other things like that. These are going to be the things that appeal to your market. We looked at daytime traffic, and daytime traffic has different components of it. The first is workforce, and the top map there is the one that's more important for this. This is a heat map representing the concentrations of employment in basically the western suburbs, that 15-minute ring. But as you can see, your business parks here are the biggest concentration of employees in the region. And we're looking at about 14.5 million annual visits from 62,000 people. So this is a combination of workers. It could be students. And we think about workers, I want to bring this up. Workers are not necessarily only the people who are employed in the offices and factories and others. There are people who routinely work in the community. Maybe they're doing housekeeping or senior care or other kinds of activities, who are here during the day on a routine basis. And that's one of the nice things about mobile device tracking as opposed to other sources. Mobile device tracking captures those people, whereas the Bureau of Economic Analysis or others, when they're looking at it, it's at where their place of employment is, even though they're working here. So this gives you a much better sense that there is a very big population of people here during the day. Even students, by the way, at the technical college, and we see them showing up in Hartland here. And with that, I also looked at lunchtime traffic. And what you see here is that there is a tremendous amount of lunchtime foot traffic. And Culver's here in Hartland is the #1 business in the region. But even elsewhere on the list, what you're seeing are mostly what we would call a fast casual. They're not going to Hardee's and McDonald's. They're looking at something like Noodles, Culver's, Panera. And that, to me, signals a lot of potential for your downtown, for your restaurants to have lunch service. A lunch service that wouldn't necessarily be their dinner menu. Maybe you're wanting to think about things that are more quickly prepared and served. You could be doing a soup and salad bar, sandwiches, other things like that, that I believe you would be able to attract that very large daytime population for lunch. The travel market, tourism, if you want to call it, it's a combination of business travel and leisure travel. And, again, I think we're looking at pretty good numbers in this region. You're at 1,700 people per day who are traveling, and it fluctuates throughout the year, of course. But and that's living at least 50 miles away is what we typically use as a tourism figure. Average of a little over 6 visits, 869,000, almost 870,000 unique visitors. And the map shows you where they're coming from, not too surprisingly, quite a bit from elsewhere in Wisconsin, the Twin Cities, down in Chicago, but that southern tier of states may include a lot of your snowbirds. And here we start looking at comparisons of visitors. And like I said, when you look at the line for Pewaukee, it starts down at the bottom there, and look what happens at Summer. That's their beach. The other communities do see a little bit of a rise in the summer months, except for Hartland. Hartland is not seeing that rise. But Pewaukee in particular does get that seasonal bump. And then we look by day of week, and what I would say is that compared to the other communities, Hartland is not showing as well in the midweek days as well as on Saturday. And some of that Saturday, of course, is the mix of business. When you think about the businesses in Oconomowoc and Waukesha, you're looking at a lot more taverns, kind of places that are going to have not just a dinner service, but attract people throughout the evening hours. So some of that is reflected in that, but overall, maybe these are a couple things that you could cue in on and ask if there are ways that you could improve the showing midweek and on Saturday. Reiterating again that lunch peak that you see in almost all the other communities that you're not seeing in Hartland or Pewaukee, really. And again, everybody pretty much experiences a dinner peak. This is typical, that lunch peak, dinner peak pattern is something we see in almost every downtown. So it is a little unusual that you're missing the lunch peak here. Oconomowoc, Waukesha, again, taverns and other things that keep people later into the evening. So the area is largely built out. Hartland in particular, there's more open space left in Delafield and a couple other communities, but you have some concerns about for the downtown, especially with visibility. Not necessarily too clear where the downtown is if you're just passing through on one of the arterials and you're not familiar with the area. And then there is a concern moving forward as areas to the north develop that you might see some more commercial activity developed in those areas that could compete with your neighborhood centers. But overall, performing very well. You have that upscale market and a good draw for destination commercial activities as well. There are some missed opportunities, that lunchtime crowd, the other days of the week. And an important one here is those key market segments. If I went back to that slide with all the bubbles on it, despite the size of those, in some cases pulling 20,000, 30,000 people out of a particular segment, the largest market penetration that you have when you look at the entire Milwaukee suburban, or Milwaukee metro area, is you're drawing 52% of one of the groups. So one of those core groups that you still have half of the potential customers in the market that could be tapped. So there is some room for expansion there. And then I think you also have a few locations in the village where development could occur. And we're suggesting targeting the selected market segments, the ones that are in your core and niche categories, focusing on maximizing sales from existing businesses in space. So this is important. I think businesses have a great opportunity to get more sales. And then building out the remaining commercial areas. And let's see if I can. Some of those, of course, the site that's owned by the bank right now, the frontage in front of the plaza with Sendix in it, there could potentially be some development in there. higher density kinds of things. This property that's owned by Quick Trip now is big enough, certainly. Quick Trip is, I'm sure they'll build here. This is a beautiful site for them. And there is space to do other things in there. So when it comes time for approval, hopefully they're going to come at you with a couple other sites, a couple other pads in there, or even a strip where you might have other retail and other uses locate. Some areas along Highway 83 that are underdeveloped at this point that might be redeveloped. And these, we've had no conversations. This is just kind of looking at it from a very high level and thinking about where you might have some development opportunity. And then sites in the downtown, I think there is the opportunity to redevelop, particularly when you're looking at a small building footprint to lot ratio at some of the parking areas, surface parking lots, other places where you could support redevelopment. And I believe that is the last slide. Yeah, okay. Any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very helpful.
Thank you.
At this time, we have discussion and consideration of awarding consideration of appointment to the Business Improvement District, and that is Avalon Graphics. Bob Wisniewski, thank you. That would take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Bob for the appointment of the bid.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Bob Wisniewski to the Business Improvement District. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Just for the record, I know that I had called you on the phone. Just before the meeting, I sent an email just saying, here it is in writing. So I'm just letting you know. I shot an email. Thank you.
Thanks for all your support.
The next item we have is consideration of awarding Hartbrook pedestrian bridge construction. Mr. Faulkner.
So in 2021, it was determined that the Hartbrook pedestrian bridge needed replacement. We have our walk bridges and vehicle bridges inspected every 2 years. There was complete failure to the underside, the framing of that. So we put it in a budget, in the 23 budget for $205,000. We sent it out for permitting and soil testing. The soil testing came back poor, and so which deemed that we needed to make a longer span and bridge. They increased the labor costs, the DNR permitting. So through that soil boring, it also stated that our footings would have to be pounded 30 feet deep in concrete pylons for the abutment support of this bridge. It's likely that the path will have to be replaced on the west side for ADA compliance, which will include, once you pull all them dump trucks back there to put in fill, they'll destroy the whole path, so we're gonna have to pave it all the way to North Avenue. That's in there as an alternative, but it's in there as a total. So that could be back down a little bit. And if we do have to replace that path, we're also $100,000 in under for our 23 paving project, so we could use some of that money for the paving of the path. So that'll bring this number down as well. That said, we put this whole proposal out and 3 companies bid on it, Zenitech, Yonke, and CW Papero. This bid came in at $294,936.64. Now this, you have to take in consideration, this is only for the abutments and the path repair. The bridge is already constructed. So this came in a little bit higher than, well, it came in a lot higher than we thought. So Because it was, Pete, you want to jump in for,
Sure.
talk about,
Yeah, so as we were going through this all, when we first upped the budget to $205,000, we hadn't received our soils investigation back yet. We had an original quote from Wheeler for the bridge structure. With the poor soils that came back, Wheeler essentially gave us a new quote for, because we also wanted to take the bridge from, it's currently 45 feet long. We were originally planning 50 feet. But for permitting purposes, if you keep it outside the wetlands that are adjacent to the river, it's a lot shorter of a permit process. Like probably 60 days of review versus could be 9 months of review, and we didn't want to delay this. So we got a higher quote back from Wheeler, and then when they did their design for the abutments, they said that on each side there needed to be 3 30-foot deep cast in place concrete pilings, which all this work also has to get done from the east side of the river, because you can't take a crane for driving those pylons onto the west side of the river. So with the constraints and everything that we have, the bids obviously came back a lot higher than we had originally anticipated. But we believe the right path forward is to still move forward with the bridge, and that's what our recommendation is.
We get calls weekly asking about that bridge and wanting it to be open. It's probably the one bridge that's really used around town a lot.
I did reach out to Wheeler, the bridge contractor, and I asked if there was an option of maybe pushing this off and rebidding it for next year. And he says, you shouldn't do that because all the state bridges are opening up their bids for construction next year, and they'll pick and choose. All 3 of these companies will be busy, and they'll pick and choose, and they'll escalate it. If they get it, they get it. If they don't, they'll just let it go by the wayside.
What's the total? So the Zenitech bid is $294,936.64.
Correct.
And then we have an additional, which is
So
the
there's-
actual bridge.
So there's the cost for the bridge and the design of that bridge, the fabrication of it, and then the design of the abutments.
Yep.
That's the 71 grand and change from Wheeler. And then there's the R&M costs for the design, the permitting. We had hydraulic modeling that had to get done because of our filling and everything in the floodplain. And then the bidding, and then that also includes some spot checking for construction administration. So on the second page of the memo, the total with engineering, that's all that stuff combined is the 432 number.
So that's total.
That would be the total.
432.
Yep.
budget by 227.
Yep. So, because it's such a large number, are you gonna need an adjustment
That's what we're here for now.
for the is this just for this project, or is this an adjustment for their overall budget for the 2023 budget?
To approve going forward.
Okay.
Yeah,
got
so
it.
our recommendation is to award the project, and that award is for the 294 number.
Yep.
And then for Zenith Tech, everything combined would be that 432. So it's in comparison only from the total project number before it's even awarded back to the CIP number.
Why, or how do I, the boring test and for all the abutments and going down, why wasn't all that, everything done before, for the first bid? Why are we just now getting this? Shouldn't this have all been done and then a bid submitted to us?
So at the time that we had to put this in the CIP, so in 2021 it came forward that the bridge needed to be replaced. We hadn't, that was right about at the time that we were doing our budgeting, so we hadn't done the soils investigation or any of that stuff yet. Through that all, we were still working with Wheeler to determine what our best options were and all that. When the rebudgeting came around for the 205,000 that we have in there, that was right about when we were getting the soil borings back. So the timing was just clunky in it all. We were doing it all together at the same time. And then, once we had all that, then it went out to get our bids for the design for the abutments. And then once all that stuff was done, for the actual project.
And essentially, this bridge failed last next year. So we'd been talking about it in '21. We knew we were going to be replacing it. They went out and inspected it and literally shut it down that day. So we had to get the ball started right away. Again, I don't think any of us are happy with this increase. The positive is interest rates are higher, so that fund does have money. It would be paid for out of cash reserves on hand out of the CIP. So
Well, let me just get the numbers right. We have 205 budgeted, correct?
Correct.
Dave, you mentioned there could be some reallocation of 100,000, you said?
It's probably closer to about 150.
Yeah.
150?
For-
Okay,
for-
so
for
I'm
the
not
paving
saying-
of the path.
Yeah, I'm not saying all of that would go this way. So we're talking maybe, what, another 120,000?
So they have in here for the paving of the path, 49, about $50,000.
So it's not exactly 227,000, it's gonna be less than that.
You're talking the overall budget.
The overall budget.
Overall,
Correct.
yeah. And I do get, like Ryan said, I get calls about, first of all, what happened to the bridge and when is it fixed, so.
I don't see it going down, so I don't think I mean, in my opinion, I don't think we have a choice. And I think in this case, if we would have done the soil testing, I think the price would have been virtually the same, because they would have said, okay, now you gotta go 30 feet, and then that would have been included in the quote. It's just, we just weren't anticipating how poor the.
Yeah.
You know, and this is something for us all to think about. I know I talked with Dave a little bit, and it's like, from now on, maybe if we're going by the river, we just do it right away. You know, if we wanna make sure that that budget is accurate. Now, even in this case, like Ryan's talking about, we do have funds that are there for reserve, that obviously you wanna backfill that, but that, it's not, we can handle it, but for the connectivity of the village, I think it's important to do it.
The good thing, this is the last bridge over the river that needs to be replaced. Every other bridge was replaced already. So this is the last one.
we did reach out to the Ice Age Trail Alliance to see if they would help donate, and I don't think you got a call back, or?
Donuts.
They had zero interest.
Give us donuts.
Well, it sounds like it's only going to get much more expensive if we push this off. And there's a lot of construction taking place, like Dave said. I don't think we have much of a choice here either.
Sad as it is. Yep.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we approve the overage on the budget to make the repairs on the Hartbrook Bridge.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Trustee Trutchell, can you just clarify, because we are awarding, so we would be
Yeah, we
awarding
gotta
to Zenith Tech.
define
Can you
Zenith.
include that?
Yes, and so the figure of 294,936.64 cents to Z-Tech? That's my motion.
A second.
Okay. So the motion is to approve the awarding of the Hartbrook pedestrian bridge construction, which includes the bridge that we've already awarded, but that the construction would go to Zenith Tech, and that construction is in the amount of $294,936.64 plus the cost of the bridge, and some stuff for roofing money, for a grand total of $432,037 and.
So we have permits already, and once this is awarded, there's usually about a month for contract signing, and then it's really gonna depend on their schedule. I think I have the deadline on the project that they need to be done by the time school starts again.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have consideration of authorization of surplus of a 2003, I bet you the bridge was a lot cheaper then, 2003 F-350 to sell on Wisconsin Surplus or Facebook Marketplace. That wasn't a shot, I'm just saying, because 2003 things were so much different than they are now with the way prices have gone up.
So Chief Jambritz approached me about Wisconsin Surplus or Facebook Marketplace. he did have some people saying, because Wisconsin Surplus does have fees that the buyer has to pay, that it might be better off to sell something like this at Facebook Marketplace. We put it in, it's really up to you guys. We've always done everything on Wisconsin Surplus, but again, that's your call.
Yeah, I think we've had that come up before. I think we have to. I mean, we've really stuck pretty closely to that. It's always got to be sold on Wisconsin Surplus. I mean, we've had these discussions come up before sometimes. Which, is this the field truck?
No, I believe this was the old DPW truck, correct? That we
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, oh yeah, gotcha, Chief.
So it's the 2003 ultra-high pressure truck.
So that's the one that was outfitted for the grass
Purchased,
fire and
a
stuff like, I mean, I
slide-in
think it was like
pressure
5 years
unit.
ago or something.
What's that?
It's the one that was outfitted so that it was carrying the water, like if there was ever a grass fire or stuff like that, it could go and handle
Yeah,
that.
it's not even used for that. So it's a high-pressure rig. There were aspirations of using that as a first response vehicle to any fires, which never really materialized. Our new engine has an ultra-high pressure system on it. This truck pretty much gets moved inside and outside and winterized and not ever used anymore. So we were just looking, instead of continuing to store it outside, to sell it off and use those proceeds to start outfitting that new command vehicle you guys approved.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
So is there a question whether or not we can list it on Facebook Marketplace? Does it matter? I mean, sell it how you sell it, just get the best price you can.
We've always stuck to that because if you start getting into that game, funny things can happen. They're nothing bad, no funny, not that they would, but no.
We've done Wisconsin Surplus so that somebody couldn't say, hey, I got the best offer, it was from my buddy Jim.
Yep.
And we were just told, I contacted Rosenbauer, who we purchased the unit from, and he had suggested putting it on Facebook Marketplace because a lot of people don't like to pay the commission stuff on the surplus auction site, where on Facebook we would probably get a little bit more money because they don't have to pay that fee to the surplus place.
The motion is for either one, or we're gonna pick one?
I'm only picking one. I mean, we've stuck really strong to the
That's what I'm
bid
saying.
process because of.
Right, because of repercussions it could.
It just is,
Right.
it's smoother.
Right. And I was gonna say, what, with the commission, what do we talk, I mean, I know it's based on the sale, but a percentage, is there a percent, like, we might get 20% more, 10% more, going by one or the other with the commission, or it's not even single digits?
You know, we've never sold a vehicle on there. Wisconsin Surplus, a lot of municipalities use. Some things we get a lot of money for, some things we don't. Fire trucks, ambulances, any of that, really, a lot
Done
of
pretty
places.
well though, right?
Yeah.
Overall.
We've done well.
Yeah, all right, I'll make a motion then to approve the sale of the surplus 2003 F-350 to sell the Wisconsin Surplus.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to sell, to authorize the sale of the 2003 F-350 to sell on Wisconsin Surplus. Discussion.
Selling it with the marketplace could open us up to a lawsuit possibly if they didn't like what they bought or whatever.
I think it opens up a lot of different cans of worms. Like on the bid and that surplus site,
Yeah.
it's tracked.
Right.
Who was bidding, where on Facebook it would be, I'm not saying, I don't know how well that stuff's tracked, but it could be word of mouth. Well, this
No.
person had the best deal, and then all of a sudden you have someone that comes and says, well, I said 7,000, how'd you sell it to him for 6? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And all of
yeah.
a sudden you have all this stuff going on. I do have, I have a comment also though, when you're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Is any of that equipment, Chief, equipment that we could yank off of there and sell standalone? I know that, I believe the Village I believe that when we got that thing and converted it, a lot of money from the, I don't know what it's called, is it the Officers Association? Money went
Heartland
into that truck
Firefighters
and then.
Association.
Yeah. And then,
Yes.
is that accurate?
We paid 21,000 for the unit, the Heartland Firefighters Association, and then I think the village put another 3,000 in to have the orange truck made black and red and letter.
Right, to paint it, yeah. I was just wondering if any of that equipment will be stripped off of there.
We're planning on selling the whole thing, the truck and all. The truck is, it's old and it's got a lot of miles and it's rusting out. So to separate it, I don't think we'd make any more money. I think if we kept it on the truck, it'd probably be more sellable.
Okay, I was just thinking, because if we just outfitted it 5 years ago, I don't know what that equipment would be worth, because some of it's not very old, so. Okay, so the whole thing. Thank you, Chief.
When I talked to Rosenbauer, they thought it'd probably be worth, with the truck and everything, about $20,000 plus.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have announcements.
Got a couple things for the board. Some of this went out in last week's updates, but just wanted to keep the board in the loop regarding our vehicle entries. We had 12 reports in the very early morning hours of May 17th of either vehicles entered or attempted entry. About half of those, nothing had occurred. Another half, we did have some loss incurred with that. And some of those, some garage door openers were accessed and entry into garages were also done. The MO for this group is unlocked vehicles. They're very specific. They're not wasting time with locked vehicles. So again, I just caution the community that locked cars, if they're in the driveway, keep valuables either inside the house or out of sight at a minimum, and then absolutely don't keep your keys in the car unlocked in your driveway. Because although we did not have any stolen vehicles, our surrounding area had a lot of them, and it was all unlocked vehicles with keys in the car. So these are crimes of opportunity. Let's mitigate some of this by just removing that opportunity. They're fairly easy things to do to try to mitigate those things, and if you don't allow that opportunity, we don't have that kind of criminal element trying to take advantage of it. We would all like to say we should be able to do all those things, and I agree with that sentiment, but it also, there's people that like to take advantage of that, and that's unfortunate, but it is a reality. So we are continuing to work with our surrounding communities and the sheriff's office on some task force, doing some extra patrols in all our subdivisions overnight, watching for these vehicles. Waukesha County, this area, Waukesha County has not been hit since our incident. The surrounding area, the day before ours, and then some other areas around us the day of ours, and then the day after us was a Germantown area that we believe was related. So a lot of stolen vehicles and not a lot of caution to how they're driving them either. So just something we're definitely staying on top of and taking very serious. And then also send out some correspondence regarding the Waukesha County Communications Center, their radio tower services. The county has engaged all the municipalities in Waukesha County regarding some security enhancements. And although enhancement sounds like something nice to have, it's actually something that we need to have for the security of the system. So it is something they're looking to implement in the near future and spreading that cost, a percentage of that cost throughout all the municipalities in Waukesha County. So the county would cover X amount, which they believe is 40%. I think their math is fuzzy, and I told them that. So I think that will hopefully go up, if I have my way at least. And then the other rest of the municipalities will pay the remainder of that percentage, spread out amongst on how often we use our radio services. So based on minutes of usage. Either way, Village of Hartland doesn't look like they'll have a major increase in the near term with the enhancements that need to be made. Unfortunately, with any technology, they're looking at continuing to improve the system, and there could come some additional costs in the coming years on that. But we'll definitely keep you posted and try to keep things as reasonable as we can when it comes to Waukesha County.
Chief?
Today is the first day of T-ball, so you will see participants on all three of the fields, Mondays through Thursdays for the next several weeks. Next week, Wednesday, is the bike rodeo at Hartland North Elementary at 6 p.m. We will be participating, PD, Fire Department, the library, and Rec Department will be putting that on. Should be a great event. And then, of course, we're still looking for hometown celebration volunteers for both Friday and Saturday night.
On the DPW end, we're finishing up getting the splash pad ready. Centennial Park playground equipment is all wrapped up. And our summer help, our college kids are just starting to roll in, so that'll free up our full-time staff to do other jobs, and we'll put the summer help, once trained, onto the lawnmowers and continue mowing the park systems. That's all I have.
Chief, does fire have anything? Good, okay.
I just muted myself. No, we don't really have anything.
Okay, thank you. Anybody down there?
We do have the Memorial Day, Monday, May 29th, at our Legion Post 294, 10:30. They're going to have, they always have a little ceremony every year, and it's at 231 Goodwin. And it's for our veterans. And I did see here they're going to have a POW, MIA. Is that, are they having a...
Prisoner of war missing in action.
Yeah, they're going to have a service for that too. So it's a great, great service to go to.
Tomorrow is local government day. DPW Director Faulkner and myself will be going to Madison to talk to representatives tomorrow. The representatives decided to have a public hearing tomorrow on a budget bill, so they could probably avoid talking to us. But we will be there.
With the passing of Sue Loppnow, I just ask that people in the village definitely, pray for her family and her extended family, and that the village does send our deepest condolences to all of them as they go through this time of grief.
Yeah.
Get it.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Aye. This meeting's adjourned.